EnergyNet is an acquisition and divestiture platform. We really serve as a two-sided marketplace for oil and gas asset transactions. Think of it like Airbnb or Uber. We have buyers and sellers. Uber has riders and drivers, and Airbnb has hosts and renters. It's kind of a way that we can create competitive sale processes for really any size asset.
Welcome to the Land Department Podcast. The state of land and energy as we see it.
Good morning, Brent.
What's up?
We have something cooking for April Fools, and this episode will go live after April Fools. So I'm curious, what do you think the response is going to be to what we do on April Fools?
It's going to be a resounding, yeah, I would expect that from those imbeciles.
It'll be fun. I'm not going to say too much. If you're listening to this, go check out LinkedIn and look at April 1st posts from Brent and Dudley and all that stuff. It'll be fun. But I just thought I'd mention
it's tons of acquisitions going on.
Yes,
lots of acquisitions.
We were just talking Acquisitions Anonymous. Really cool podcast that people should check out. But we might title this one Acquisitions Anonymous for energy, right?
We have to send them a tip, man. Yeah. So, Chris, thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me today, guys. Appreciate it. Looking forward to the discussion.
Yeah. So, Brett, let's start
here,
really quick. I want to hear, let's start with some of the cool stuff. Tell us a story about your client that purchased some land through EnergyNet at the end of last year.
Oh, yeah. So, God, we've been using the platform for a long time. And this kind of my first exposure to EnergyNet was years ago when you were first starting up and trying to get feedback about this platform. And, you reached out to us just because we do a lot of lease sales, government sales back in the day when you had to go there. Mm-hmm. And, we checked out the platform and it was really neat because we developed software. They were in the process of kind of really getting the UI on their software and their platform working and just were seeking feedback. So it's how kind of I ran across Chris and the team over there. And fast forward a number of years since then, and we bid $134,000 an acre on behalf of one of our clients on the New Mexico parcel last year, and it was pretty exciting, man. I mean, is that a record? Is that the highest?
Yeah,
acre.
That's the record for a Bureau of Land Management lease sale in New Mexico. And but I think the previous record was from 2018, and that was a really large. It was like $1 billion lease sale, all basically in one day. And that was when I believe Matador Resources, publicly traded company, had bid $95,001 per acre. This track that you guys, that Dudley bid on back in October or November, it did have some extenuating circumstances. There was there were some reasons why, and there was I think maybe some money in suspense from a well that they were going to get. So it was the metrics were a little juiced rather than just raw like untouched acreage, but nonetheless, it still definitely set a record. And it was exciting to watch. And then Brent had called me. I think I was in the car or on the road. I was like, hey, we need to increase our bid allowance by a little bit.
Yeah.
He told me the number that he was increasing to, and I was like, oh wow, okay, we'll get that done right.
So yeah, we're going to go ahead and double that for you, Brent.
That's awesome. Well, Chris, why don't you?
I mean, it was Permian Resources was our client. Give those guys a shout out, and we do a bunch for them from their early days as well. With the town of Pecos, we did all that abstracting, and to see where they, how they progressed has been pretty exciting. And God, they bought a bunch of parcels off of EnergyNet in New Mexico, and been a good platform for them.
Yeah, the Permian Resources guy and Colgate beforehand. I mean, what a company and what a story. I had a early on situation with James Walter where before he'd started Colgate, him and Will Hickey started Colgate, and he came over to my office in Houston. He just left Denham and said he's gonna move to Midland, start an oil and gas company. Like, all right, man. Well, good luck. I hope you'll do well. And man, he's
better fly your wife in there at night.
$10 billion plus company now. Amazing what they've done in a short amount of time.
Man,
yeah,
wild. Yeah. Well, Chris, why don't you share with us really quick, just in basic terms, the EnergyNet website? What is it, and what is the platform? But then let's go into the background. I want to hear the origin story of EnergyNet.
Yeah, certainly. So EnergyNet as a acquisition and divestiture platform, we really serve as a two-sided marketplace for oil and gas asset transactions. And that's where we started out. We have currently about nearly 50,000 registered buyer accounts and about 15,000 registered seller accounts. So when I say two-sided marketplace, I mean, kind of think of it like Zillow or even, Airbnb or Ubers. We have buyers and sellers. Uber has riders and drivers, and Airbnb has hosts and renters. But it's kind of a way that we can create competitive sale processes for really any size asset. So when we started off, we were primarily an online auction company, and we would work on behalf of what we call, industry side clients. So we'd work on behalf of banks or individuals or groups like Exxon or Chevron that had, these oil and gas assets, and they may be operated working interests, like operated producing fields. It may be non-producing leasehold that they own that was, had a term on it. Could have been overriding royalty interest, royalties, non-operated working interest, combinations thereof. But really, instead of just trying to say, here's a package of assets and we're going to go try to find a buyer on our own as the company, they engage us, and we create a very comprehensive data room materials. And then we, access our network of buyers to expose it to the right buyers, and then create a competitive environment where they compete for the assets with a kind of a fixed structure around it, a fixed ending time. The deal parameters, what's being offered, how the deal is going to close, how the purchase and sale agreement works, when funds are due, when the effective date is all known. It's kind of a level playing field for all participants. So, instead of just being on somebody's short list that you were lucky enough to get the call to maybe participate in an asset acquisition opportunity, this is more widespread, a lot more exposure to the market. And then, running the competitive sale processes really kind of generates the best outcome for the seller. But for the buyers, it's just giving them a ton of opportunities that are teed up and ready to go. So, we've been in business now for 25 years. We have about 50 employees. We have a team that builds BDRs. We have a team that target markets the asset to prospective buyers. We have business development managing directors that are, building relationships or maintaining relationships with, key oil and gas E&P companies, whether they're majors, large independents, small and mid-cap private equity sponsors, private equity portfolio companies that are working with them. They have a team of petroleum engineers and geologists that are working to kind of build the upside around more complex asset transactions. Have a technology team that maintains and builds and improves on the platform itself. But with the team to date, we've sold over $10 billion in assets, but that's literally 100,000 plus individual transactions in a given year. Like last year, we did just about $1 billion in asset transactions, probably 2,000 or 2,500 individual transactions. 90% of those were sub $3 million. And a handful where it ranged in value from, say $10 million to $150 million in value. But it's really, kind of similar to some of these other two-sided marketplaces. As more users are using it, kind of the it strengthens and improves with that. Just, you're getting quality assets on the market, and then getting the right buyers to participate. The right buyers are participating, and you're getting good results in terms of valuations. Then you'll use it more and more. But
keep coming.
Yeah.
Back.
So with that, like we had initially, it was online auctions for E&P assets, upstream assets. So we have really kind of three lines of business now, where we still have the auction and sealed bid assets for the industry side. We have what's called Indigo Energy Advisors. That's more of kind of an energy investment bank, just more high touch, more kind of white glove service for the higher value deals, for $100 million deal, $150 million deal. And then what we use a lot with Dudley and Brent is our government resources division. And that's where, we have this platform. We work for about 18 different government agencies, including the U.S. federal government through the Bureau of Land Management. We work for the state of Texas for university lands, Texas GLO, state of Oklahoma, state of New Mexico, and a lot of the western states, Colorado, North Dakota, Wyoming, Montana, to facilitate their oil and gas lease sales. And a lot of those, so the Bureau of Land Management has federally mandated, like legally mandated sales, and in the congressional laws are passed on how these will run and how how the rules work. And then the states have kind of their own different ways of doing this. So some of them are what we call transparent bid auctions, where you can see that the high bid is, $1 million and you have to bid, $1,010,000 to be the high bidder. And others are sealed bid processes where you offer the assets available for sale, but you don't necessarily have the advantage of knowing what the other bidders are bidding. So those are kind of our three lines of business, and they have some synergies among themselves. Where especially with the government lease sales in the state of New Mexico or BLM, state of Wyoming, state of Texas, it gets to we get to interact with the biggest of the big. The Oxys are participating, and the EOGs and the Mewburns and Permian Resources, and it's great to. We're really some of the more interesting things. I mean, confidential, but from where we're sitting, we can see all the people that are registering for the sale, and how much money they're registering for the sale, and who's competing against who for those specific tracks.
Yeah.
So that can get really exciting just to watch as kind of the fireworks going off on certain tracks.
Yeah, you must have a really good pulse on the industry.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting to see. I need to, the next, Karnes County, I'm going to buy my barbecue joint.
Get your popcorn.
My hotel set up right before it kicks off, so.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's, you guys were kind of the first, I guess, web platform, right? That really took ground. Before you had the oil and gas clearinghouse, that kind of thing was out there. It was coming in a magazine every month.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the government sales, we would have to, as land, field guys, very often we were traveling to have someone at the sale with the sealed envelope, to turn in your bid, or representing a company guy out in the field. And this really changed everything. Really, what was that process like to get the BLM to embrace your platform and to get the state of Texas on board? Who was the bell cow? Who's the first one you got that got the rest of them to join in or give you credit?
Yeah. So, it wasn't easy, and there was a lot of, a lot involved with that. Our founder, Bill Britton of EnergyNet, really kind of had the idea and concept for a number of years. And I believe it was 2010 or 2011 that we approached the state of Colorado. So all these, the states themselves, they have state-owned land that if there is, oil and gas production in their state, they lease those lands to the highest bidder, to E&P companies that want to explore, develop those lands, and they hold competitive sale processes for this. So we initially approached the state of Colorado, and we did it was called Oakley App. It was basically a pilot program to show that this could work, and it was working. So we did that, had some success there, and then really kind of picked off the western states kind of one by one. North Dakota obviously had a lot of production with the Williston going on, in the Bakken and Three Fork formations, and then the Wyoming with Powder River Basin. We talked to Montana, we talked to Colorado with the DJ Basin, and some of them would say, well, we really like our process now, how it's working, but we'll give you all the stuff that didn't sell, didn't get any bids. So we're like, all right, we'll see what we can do. And we were getting the stuff that didn't have any bids, and we were able to sell it, and we were able to get pretty good values for them. We're like, all right, well, let's try this stuff for the stuff that we know has the big stuff that we know has a lot of interest, and those did really well. And as you mentioned, at first, from some of the from landmen or just the groups, there was some pushback. I mean, we were creating more competition for these assets, but on the other hand, you didn't have to fly to Bismarck, North Dakota, and drive 4 hours in a rental car in the snow, get blizzarded in to raise your paddle one time and realize you got outbid and come home. So it made it a lot more convenient. Interestingly, for a group like Dudley, a ton of E&P companies, even though it's done through a web-based platform, a ton of companies still use land brokers to do these leases. Sometimes land brokers are holding title themselves, or just doing it on behalf of their clients, but it still makes sense. So we use really those kind of the western states to prove out the concept. Interestingly, with the Bureau of Land Management, we showed that we could do it for some other states, and it was working. they were receptive to, one, getting more competition, just streamlining the whole operation. We make all the registration and making sure that the buyers are financially capable or have the wherewithal to make the transaction. We make that really easy. We, do all the invoicing, closing, make that portion easier on them. But during that time, when we were kind of knocking on the door and we were making our pitch to try our platform and to use it, they were unfortunately having quite a bit of issues with kind of environmental type protesters that would disrupt their lives, their live physical sales. And sometimes it would be just, simple, people exercising their First Amendment rights to protest outside. And sometimes people would come in and bid on assets that they never intended to pay for, and it would just kind of ruin the whole sale process. So they're like, well,
it became a thing. I mean, it was literally every government sale that we go to in the Western U.S. to represent someone, we'd send somebody 2 days early. If you're doing something up in North Dakota or Montana, you don't want to get caught in the blizzard and not raise your paddle, because some landman's stuck on, an interstate highway somewhere. So we'd go in early and be getting updates, and protesters showing up outside, throwing stuff at our people, bidding on parcels that they had no intent to ever operate or even be able to pay for. So it disrupted things. And with these sales, they can't just have another sale next week. I mean, when that gets disrupted, you're talking a year or months before they could get that back up on the docket to be bid on. And it affected a lot of industry. So you guys were ripe for, to be the solution.
And the members of the government entities that facilitate these sales. I mean, that's their day job. That's what they're trying to do. But having to deal with all these people that were, kind of disrupting at things. I mean, they're government officials, and hey, you can protest and do what you want, but it caused a lot of headaches, I'm sure, just to try to do both at the same time and do both responsibly and, with everything.
Yeah.
It was really interesting to watch that all kind of come to be. And then we had some success with, I believe after the BLM with Texas GLO, George P. Bush, who was head of the Texas GLO, found, we had a lot of success when he was running it. And he was really a big supporter, and the university lands began holding their sales as well, and just had a lot of success. And that was at a time where University Lands was trying to kind of revamp their organization to be more
modernize
and just like operate like a, more like a capitalistic company, not just a government entity performing service. So we felt like they felt like we were adding a lot of value for them, just getting, making sure we got full market exposure and competition for the assets, just streamlining that, reducing some of their costs. So my background, I've actually been with EnergyNet since 2002, nearly 21 years, which is a long ride, lots of ups and downs along the way. I kind of joke that we probably start, or at least Bill Britton was the founder of the company. I came on board shortly afterward, but I mean, the first 10 years were really getting my head kicked in. We were kind of premature. I mean, fortunately, we did what we did when we did it for a long time, and we were getting kind of our head kicked in. Like, we're not, calling on people my father's age at the time. I don't know about this online stuff. I'm not giving anybody my credit card. What if I, this and this? I'm not
giving you my email address.
All that stuff. So it was an uphill battle for quite a bit of time. And then it just kind of the technology moved in our way, and just, it was working, generally. So I've been with EnergyNet for quite some time, but, previous to that, I was just, business finance degree, worked at Enron, where that career path didn't work out for me, for that little fiasco there. But it was good that it was good to have the Enron experience when I was 23, not 63.
Oh, you had 23-year-old Enron experience.
That's right. I didn't have any money to lose. So.
We might have to detour this thing here, and I might have to get a story. Everybody's got one Enron story.
Yeah, definitely. All good stuff. It was definitely a good time back then. But I mean, even kind of watching Enron fall apart, it was at least kind of in the belly of the beast. Watching it happen was definitely entertaining, to say the least.
I bet.
Man.
So I guess especially on the government sale side, like, you've got the major Rockies players, obviously the Texas. Like, what's the state that is uncooperative that you
Oh,
haven't been able to get that you guys want to get?
like we haven't that we don't do any Louisiana, state of
I know
Louisiana
one.
lease sales.
You hadn't
Uh,
greased the right palms, huh?
we're
Yeah, I'm from Louisiana.
trying.
I can trash Louisiana all I want. That's my homeland, you know.
We're trying. We do a state of Alaska. We don't do BLM Alaska. We don't do offshore like BOEM. And we've knocked on BOEM's door a lot, and we think we could add value there. But kind of from their perspective, and I understand that there's like what our process is generally offering is a lot of exposure to a wider set of groups. But with BOEM and Gulf of Mexico offshore, there's only on your hands and toes you can probably count the bidders, and there's not necessarily a lot of new companies coming into that space. So they have kind of their own ways. I think we're working on state of Ohio, but they've recently just had their first state. It just became a thing with the Utica and things like that. Those are our main ones.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Louisiana was the one that came to mind. I was like, man, come on.
Yeah, I know.
Louisiana.
We'd like to work for them.
Let's step it up.
You mentioned, Chris, the competitive sale process. Let's kind of walk through that and really give detail to how it works, what it looks like, how it influences deals.
Sure. I guess like, the way I think about things and kind of our company mantra really is that, that a fair, structured, competitive sale process is going to generate the best results, consistently. Whether there's a, it's a, one-on-one sale or, kind of a industry type investment bank led sale or, a government lease sale. I mean, you kind of think about things on a spectrum, right? Where the seller wants to get the most exposure and the most, qualified bids and the highest possible value. And then from a buyer's perspective, kind of don't want the competition. I like to go, I like to go to the bars and nightclubs where like there's a whole bunch of good looking girls there. I'm the only guy there. Like I don't want the competition. When
you don't want to be over next to the Air Force Base.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
You need to be like next to the ladies' college.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, so from a buyer's perspective, you're always looking to, all right, I need to build a relationship with this company, and they need to hopefully they'll give me first shot to make my best offer. And a lot of deals are continue to be done that way. And
does that? I'm sorry, Chris. So like on that point, if you guys list something, you mentioned you had Indigo, you had, kind of more your boutique tailored. Are you guys marketing transactions that never show up on the platform?
Sometimes, yeah.
Bid on? Yeah. So that kind of falls in that Indigo model where those guys will reach out to you, have an asset that they're wanting to market. You guys selectively reach out to, the right buyers and try to work deals for them.
Yes, that's exactly right. So I guess in that sense, and you kind of mentioned earlier, but like with kind of this pulse of the market, if I know that every single person that participated in the Bureau of Land Management Wyoming lease sale and the state of Wyoming lease sale, and we've done these 20 other transactions for operated and non-operated assets in the state of Wyoming, and I have all the data rooms, and I have everybody look at the data room and all the bidders and who the high bidder was and who the runner-up bidder was. I have a lot of kind of data at my fingertips. So, a company may call us and say, hey, we're looking to, we're going to kind of keep this deal private, or, we don't want our name in lights. Can you go out to, maybe your top 10 buyers and see if we can get a deal done here. So we do some private deals like that. I mean, I would rather them be, full marketed exposure.
Yeah.
I think my chances of success on getting a closed transaction are better that way. But definitely, we can use our intel and knowledge to, kind of pinpoint and target buyers that we think should be the right buyers, the most logical buyers, and should be willing to pay the most. I think there's a perception sometimes that if you put it out, you're going to get tire kickers, you're going to get lowball bidders or whatnot. But I mean, just the nature of the platform and kind of how the mechanics work. I mean, they just sifts. I mean, the cream rises to the top. Like
Cream
we may
rises to
get
the top. Yeah.
we may get 20 bids, and there may be some lowball bids or some tire kickers, but we're not advancing the conversations with them. We're talking,
Yeah.
if you're doing that on your own, you may trying to sell an oil and gas deal. Like, I think a lot of sellers in their mind, think like, all right, this company, like, name a hot company at a given time. Like this one's going to be the one that's really going to pay us the most. And if we can get a deal down with them, just bypass all this stuff. And usually that's not the case. And they, they'll either slow play you, or they won't give you the best offer off the bat, or they know they don't have any competition. So they're kind of, biding their time.
We're landing. We're landing.
So you kind of know
you do that.
You kind of know the dynamic of it. But if there's a fixed ending time, like, on, April 30th, sealed bids are due and the seller is going to move forward. And if you're not in the mix, you may not be getting the property, and that opportunity is gone. So, just kind of creating that environment, helps get deals done. And helps,
and those, like, as part of the structure, do you guys, I'm interested like on the PSA, because we see deals fall apart all the time on PSA, that the money guys will make a deal, and then the lander it just can't get on the PSA. Do you guys establish some structure there on some of your transactions where, like, this is the predisposed PSA? If you're a buyer or seller, this is what you're gonna live by.
That's a really good point, and that's really has been kind of a secret to our success and kind of a secret sauce. And I guess starting with, so for when I say auction, what I mean by that is it's a transparent bid auction on the EnergyNet platform. Most of those assets will have a minimum reserve price, so the seller can set a minimum reserve price. But the key there, the secret sauce, is that for those transactions, the buyer signs a buyer agreement and the seller signs a seller agreement. The seller agreements, does two things. It's engaging us to give us authority to market and sell the property at a certain price, but it also serves as like kind of a quasi bilateral purchase and sale agreement. EnergyNet buyer agreement, EnergyNet seller agreement, work together, and they both point to the seller's outgoing conveyance as the controlling document of the sale. If other things aren't said, so our buyer and seller agreement says, how effective dates will work, and how oil in the tank will work, and how pref rights, and how consents to assign, and how title will work, and how environmental will work. So it's like, if the whole oil and gas industry could just say, hey, we're all going to sign this one PSA for every single deal, and we can make minor tweaks to it. So what that allows us to do, and we originally did it we don't want to be negotiating a PSA on every single transaction, especially if it's a $100,000 deal, $50,000 deal, even $1 million deal. To some of the big companies are like, I don't want to negotiate a PSA for that. So like having that structure of a kind of a set in stone PSA buyer seller agreement that's already pre-agreed upon. And then when we post our data rooms, here's everything, all the information, the effective dates known. If you win the asset, you meet or exceed the seller's minimum reserve price at the conclusion of the sale process, we're invoicing you, and your name's going in the blank of the assignment. You owe the funds in 2 business days, and we're filing the document of record with the county. So it kind of boils everything down to just the purchase price. So, if ExxonMobil's bidding on it, and, Joe down the street's bidding on it, and some new private equity company's bidding on it, they're bidding on the exact same terms, exact same level playing field. So that streamlines everything. And that's what really allows us to close, 2,000, 2,500 transactions a year, because we're not
deal flow, man.
A lot of deal flow. And then, so, and I think what really, helped Bill with kind of conceptualizing this with the government lease sales specifically, is we had done from 2003 to about 2010, we had sold Chevron and Texaco merged in 2000, and they had a freeze period on selling any assets until they got all through the FTC mergers type stuff. But then they engaged us to sell 220,000 net mineral acres in 33 different states. Some were non-producing minerals, some had, royalties, some had overriding royalties, some had a little non-operated working interest. But from their point of view, Chevron said, we want to sell all this, but no PSAs. Like it's as is, where is, you want it, you want it, you buy it, it's a done deal. But having that kind of backstop of someone like Chevron saying that there is no negotiation, just if you don't like our terms, bid lower or don't bid at all.
Yeah.
It kind of set a framework that we really still live with, that we abide by and think through today, where we can set the offering or the structure of the deal parameters exactly how the seller would like to transact in an ideal world. And that's probably the best way to go about doing it. So all these transactions with Chevron, were successful, but then we said, all right, well, if Chevron's just saying this is the line in the sand, my way or the highway for 220,000 mineral transactions that was, resulted in like 3,000 or 4,000 transactions. We can do this for state governments that have these rigid, it has to be this way. The money has to be this way. The property has to be marketed this way. So it had this
Prove the concept.
Proof of concept. And it was like, yeah, we can, there is no negotiation, on a North Dakota, state of North Dakota lease sale or BLM, here are all the parameters set ahead of time on how this deal will happen. If you're the high bidder, then you just want it, and we're gonna close it accordingly to how the law is written or how the deal parameters are written. So that kind of allowed us to formulate.
Was that what you guys feel and look back now as kind of what really got you going? Like what really accelerated your growth to what you become today?
Yeah. Well, I mean, with that Chevron Texaco stuff, it brought a lot of moths to the flame, like selling all that at one time. It was like, oh, what do they have? And they have something in Martin County. They have something in, South Texas. And it was just all this stuff really, but it was,
probably gave you opportunity to refine your platform as well.
Yeah.
Meet all the nuanced needs of those different things.
Right. So when we do the Indigo Energy Advisors transaction, so those are just essentially more complex, higher value deals. It may be, those do require a purchase and sale agreement. And there is, deals sometimes fall apart because the purchase and sale agreement can't be done. But what we try to do there, again, is structure the sale exactly how the seller would like to transact. So we're coming to market with some EOR assets and the Central Basin platform and an Eastern Shelf for Kinder Morgan, for example. These assets will be out in market in a week or so. But we're going to have their form of assignment in the data room. There's going to be their form of PSA in the data room, and then when we get offers, we can at least say, here's one that's redlined all to hell. That the lawyers took 2 weeks redlining it, and here's one that says they'll sign as is, just to they just put their name in the blank of Kinder Morgan's assignment or purchase and sale agreement. So it makes it much easier. Yeah. It's like, and for some of these big companies, that's way more, that may be way more important to getting all the legal stuff and the, liability stuff, right and correct rather than, if it's, $500,000 more or less.
That's cool. It's so interesting. Cool. So I want to hear some crazy sales stories. I'm sure there's been some wild, interesting, maybe people complaining about their bid not being accurate, or what are some of the crazy things that happen on the back end of this?
Me doing this for a long time, I have some crazy ones from I had one that the guy's minimum reserve, price, the auction ran its course, about a 4-week process, started. I met with him in person and, got the engagement agreement signed and got all the documents. I think he wanted $800,000 and, high bid stopped at $650,000. So our process there is to contact we'll contact the seller, contact the high bidder and see, all right, $650, can we, the seller's wanting a little bit more. Can we get you to increase your offer? And sometimes the seller will say, or sometimes the buyer will say, the market spoke, I outbid everybody else. I'm holding line. Other times we can kind of close the gap to get a sale done. And I called the seller, couldn't get a hold of him, left a couple messages. And then his sister calls me back and says, oh, Pete's up in jail right now. So I had a couple of collect calls on my expense report for, some negotiation to get a deal done. He got the deal done. It was, as far as I know, all the legal stuff.
$650,000 and 2 packs of cigarettes.
Yeah, exactly. Some commissary money. But now, but I don't really recall what the charges were, if he got off of them. I know, but it was just kind of some interesting stuff doing some of these deals. on the bid stuff, at least through the platform, like everything's tracked. So there's times where people will say, oh, I didn't, I bid
didn't
higher
put
than
that
last
amount.
guy. And I was like, well, here's a screenshot, or here's, where you bid, 5 seconds after the auction ended. You still wouldn't have won it because somebody had a higher, proxy bid amount than you did. But, I guess another thing just with kind of the depth and breadth of the number of transactions and the characters and, amount of time is just about any time when something in the news is, so-and-so is, these, like weird stuff happens. So like, let's see what their EnergyNet account is. Cause 9 times out of 10, they have an EnergyNet account somewhere along the way.
Yeah. I mean, for us, like we've had a number of times going back to the Permian Resources deal in November, we have a pretty high bid allotment, right? It's definitely bid on a lot of these sales. And so talking to our clients and we're kind of strategizing, and typically they call me like a day and a half before they're ready to bid, and then we're scrambling. And I'm not picking on them. It's every client, So we're scrambling to get all our ducks in a row and get registered and everything. And so we're waiting on the number from our client. Like, what's the high bid that you want to put?
Right. Yeah.
And so they give me the number. I'm like, I enter in the number. It's like, you're not authorized to bid that high. I was like, oh. So I'm like scrambling. I'm looking for numbers and the clock's ticking. Like, this is the last minute. Cause I think we started at one amount that was absurd. And we were the low bidder. And so instantly the client goes into chaos. And then I'm like, wait, and they give me the number, I put it in, it doesn't go. And I'm like, oh crap. So I'm like looking for numbers. I'm trying to find Chris's number in my cell phone. I'm checking old emails, and I find like an old email from several years back that we had corresponded on something. So I call him up, and he picks up the phone randomly. And I'm like, dude, I need more money. I can't put a high enough number in here. And so he connects me to a guy and to speak to it. The phone, when it rings, they always pick up. They've been great about that. Yeah. Whoever it is, somebody's going to answer the damn phone. And,
that's actually been one of our rules from the beginning, just to kind of, because of the nature of, sometimes it's time sensitive, but I think just different people along the way just despise the automated phone tree type service.
Hate it.
And whenever you call the main line, somebody picks it up and can get you the right person and get you taken care of quickly. But
they sure did. Somebody was at lunch.
With the bid allowances, it's kind of it's a stopgap, or kind of a security check. So you have to bid on just about anything on EnergyNet. You have to create a registration, your username, password, your contact information, address, phone number, company name. Typically you have to sign up. Sign up. You have an affidavit that we call it the rich and smart language. You have to certify that you're both rich and smart. But it's actually SEC type language, that you're a sophisticated, knowledgeable investor. Do you know what you're doing? And you can't come back and say, well, that South Louisiana well watered out on me. Like, well, you're a big boy. You know what you're doing. You know what you're bidding on. So you have to sign an affidavit that you're a sophisticated, knowledgeable investor, and then you typically have to sign a buyer agreement that has kind of the rules of engagement. Then you also have to establish a bid allowance. So sometimes individuals maybe investors, they may establish a bid allowance of $50,000 or $100,000, and then you have groups like Oxy or somebody or Marathon that's saying we want a $100 million bid allowance. Okay, we do the financial verification. Just those funds can be made liquid if they're the winning bidder and they need to, but it just kind of it helps decrease any deals falling apart because the high bidder didn't have the money.
Well, what that has done is given me ample, consistent opportunities to make great jokes with all my clients when we win on something. The guys, y'all got to pay your invoice. Atherton's going to own all my ass, all my kids. He's going to take my dog, my bass.
Oh yeah. Because you're bidding on behalf of your clients. So if they don't pay you, or you don't pay the invoice, they don't pay the invoice.
They don't pay me. There's no way I can pay this thing, man.
You might need to get that bid allowance lowered
out here.
You might want to lower that bid allowance, Brent.
Yeah, I know. We had some fun with it, but it's kind of cool, all the strategy that goes into it. Back in the day,
there is, like with the proxy, and you were kind of asking about like or just interesting stories. But I mean, sometimes it's a seller or a buyer that, they have everybody in the conference room, bidding to see, see what it's going for. And, you can, every time you refresh the screen, you can, the bids are updated. But some of that stuff can be really, really exciting just to see, just to explain the, proxy bid function is let's say there's a $20 million asset, and Brent's willing to pay, $30 million for that. He could put the $30 million proxy bid and he would be the high bidder at $1 million. And even though it was worth 20, or the seller wanted 20, and then maybe somebody else comes in and enters a bid of $2 million, and then he would just automatically outbid them by one bid increment. But it makes sense when it's all lower amounts, but if somebody else enters a proxy bid of $40 million, then it automatically goes to 31, like instant. It can jump up really quickly.
Wow.
And that kind of that proxy bid function really, and the fixed time really forces the serious participants to enter their true max, or they run the risk of losing it. If you are kind of dithering one, well, I'd really like to pay this, or you're not kind of true to yourself on what you are willing to pay, then you can end up losing it.
Can you go through some other strategies, especially with like the sealed bids, without the proxy, maybe like, for example, putting $1 at the end of your bid, just so that you're $1 ahead if somebody bids the same amount of you? Like, what are some other strategies that people may find valuable?
Yeah, on the government lease sales, on the sealed bid, you really just have to be kind of disciplined, about, what you're willing to pay, and you kind of stick with that. You can enter, theoretically you could enter a sealed bid, then you could enter a second higher sealed bid, but just whichever one was higher would be the one that was the most important one. But so on the government lease sales, with the sealed bids, like, the thing about those is they are going to sell. There's no post bid negotiation, and so that kind of changes the dynamic. You don't really want to leave gas in the tank, where maybe on the industry side sealed bids. So we had some Permian assets operated in Reeves County that we ran a process for, and we received sealed bids, and we take all those sealed bids and we summarize them and categorize them, and add our notes to them on where the money's coming from and our experience dealing with those buyers in the past, and then we submit it to the seller, and the seller reviews those bids, maybe with their partners or financial sponsors, and then a lot of times they'll come back and say, hey, we appreciate all the bids, can you go back to the top 4 bidders and ask for their best and final number? And so in that case, you kind of want to, you got the option to say, well, that is my best and final number, of course. But a lot of times the seller just wants to see some negotiation, wants to see some give. Feel like they won. And then that creates another little, kind of strategic sense where, if you go from the third highest bidder to the winning, if you have a lot to increase, you're kind of wanting to get that call back. You don't want to be, not called back, but at the same time, like, how much can you really increase? And, and realizing that other bidders are given that same opportunity too, can kind of change the dynamic on those type of situations. I would say that a lot of times, at least in our experience, the more strategic way to think about it is your closing terms, or saying, like, we have cash on hand, we don't need board approval, we don't need investment committee approval. Like, our offer is our offer, but we can close, in a week or 10 days, not 3 months from now. We're not going to go back and forth with you on the PSA forever. Like, so a lot of those have a lot of value, and especially on the industry side deals. Yeah. Just factors to consider.
Oh, that's good.
From a seller's
Chris,
perspective.
man, you guys have come so far, and the industry's changed a lot in the 20 years that you've been in business, or 21 years or whatever. Then what's the next 5 years look like for you guys? I mean, where are you headed? Where's the platform headed? Where do you see the industry heading?
We're
looking in other spaces, like,
we are
actually.
Gas. We are actually. And so with, essentially, with what we've been doing, we've had success, in, I guess I'll call it energy adjacent or land adjacent markets. So for the Bureau of Land Management in Nevada. To think about like the city of Las Vegas or the city of Reno, but it's federal land that surrounds all of that. And as the metropolis grows, they're encroaching on federal land. So we've actually had real estate sales for as a competitive sale process. We had a real estate, just raw surface land that's, Vegas desert on the outskirts of town, but groups like KB Homes, Lennar Homes, and Toll Brothers they're buying options on that. So, or actually buying the land outright. So we've actually done about competitive sale processes for about 30 different commodities.
Really?
And that's oil, gas, surface real estate. We've done some potash. We've done gravel mines, sand mines. We've done wind rights, solar rights. Not actually, and those are rights to build. But we've done.
Is it primarily old government? Is it primarily old government lands?
Yes, thus far, and we're using that kind of as the tip of the spear to get access to those markets, which are much different than oil and gas markets, to try to build a kind of a track record of facilitating these types of transactions and then transferring that over to other industry side participants in the wind sector or solar sector or CCUS. Some of them are definitely more lucrative than others. I mean, real estate is probably as deeper than oil and gas in terms of number of transactions. Even if you take out like office and residential, I mean, just all the amount of ranches and raw surface acreage that's available and can be done. So kind of moving in those directions. So like we're building out our platform and part of that. Building our platform for different verticals within kind of these land and energy adjacent type assets. And some will be more like this is a listing service or a marketplace business, kind of like how EnergyNet started. And some will be more bespoke type, boutique advisory, like, you're putting together a position to put, 60 windmills up, somewhere, and it's more of a bespoke trying to get everybody, coordinating that transaction to happen, rather than just 2,000 transactions per year or something like that.
Mm.
So that's kind of the direction we're headed, and it allows us to be more thoughtful with like how we think about our hiring people or how we think about allocating resources. Like, all right, this these agricultural rights over here, or these timber rights are really taking off. So we're going to dedicate more resources and capital and people towards attacking that market. And where this over here maybe in the grazing rights or something is great, but it's not water rights. Maybe it's not as lucrative. So we can kind of push and pull the dials back on what's working at any given time.
So
But we'll have verticals set up, vertical entity names. And structures set up for kind of each of those verticals. That's where really where we're headed.
Same
And then
technology, but have your business units geared and specializing in those arenas to try to put those deals together and put them out to the market.
that's exactly right. And what's occurring now, or what we've been experiencing, we've had success doing this, and for the government agencies that we work for on the oil and gas side, it's like the guy down the hall that does, renewables, or does the real estate, or does, some of these, more mining or metals related things that the government offices own. So that's kind of the direction we're going. But you had success doing these different commodities for these different government agencies, but at the same time, we've had pushback where, we're the state of Washington, and we don't have any oil and gas assets. Why do we want to work with an oil and gas, competitive, marketplace type site? And, well, how about you want to work with the timber one?
Or do you like money? I don't care if you're
right. But but some of it, and then from the oil and gas side, we had definitely clients like, what are you guys doing selling cabins in Montana? I was like, how many people you have over there? It's like, hopefully it will help kind of define our focus and allow us to kind of excel at what we do well.
Yes, you feel like the at least the start of that expansion will continue to be with government agencies, and then in time maybe working with more private entities for.
That's right.
I could see it being a space where, and I think there's stuff like this in the renewable side where there's some emerging groups or platforms that are trying to do this to take a landowner that says, hey, I've got a 4,000 acre property or a 500 acre property next to a T-line XYZ and put it on the marketplace for open bid.
That's right.
Do y'all see yourself working with more private landowners with those things?
Yeah, working towards that. Little bit different model, just because it is the individual landowners are kind of similar to the individual, like a mineral owner, like an heir or something. I just inherited these minerals from my grandparents.
More higher maintenance.
Yeah. They don't know what they have. They don't know what it's worth. They don't know how the market works. So those can be difficult to do transactions at scale, I guess.
Yeah.
So we want to start off with the groups that have, I guess, for EnergyNet, for example.
Yeah.
We've never really specifically targeted like the mineral owner, like the individual, because let's target the people who we know have big pockets of assets that can sell forever and ever, like the Chevrons or Exxons.
Get the repeat business.
Like and then one other area that we're trying to get more traction with is some of these companies that have in themselves a massive amount of either mineral holdings or even leasehold, and almost replicate what looks like a state or federal lease sale, but just for private companies. Here's 60,000 acres that meet Blackstones, Weyerhaeusers, groups like that have this like big positions that they right now they do it kind of a one-off basis when people contact them. But if you could have it more of a formulaic, structured process, we think it would really get a good result.
That makes sense. Well, we're excited to see what the next 5, 10 years holds for you guys. And Chris, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been great to hear the story and get a little insight into how it all works and what your platform provides. Thanks again for joining us.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you guys. This has been a fun conversation. We enjoy working with you guys and hope to continue to do so.
Man,
keep that
really
bid
appreciate it
out for me.
I will. Call me anytime.
Great. Well,
we'll reach out to you, Chris.
Okay. Thank you.
Hey, Chris, how can people find you? I'm sure you're on LinkedIn, like things like that. The website. Website. That's all right. We covered that.
Create an account at energynet.com to kind of see what's going on. Feel free to contact me on my email, chris@energynet.com, or contact me on LinkedIn or Twitter.
Excellent. We'll put links to all that in the show notes. Appreciate you being on again. And thanks for listening, everyone. Please subscribe, and we'll see you around.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to The Land Department. Check out our website in the show notes or visit dudley-land.com to learn more about us.